Hey man, you ever notice how the moment a woman starts feeling too secure in her position, she gets comfortable? And I don't mean comfortable in a loving, nurturing way. I mean in a way where she stops trying, stops chasing, stops putting in the effort. It's not because she's a bad person or disloyal. It's because security without uncertainty is emotional flatline. An emotional flatline is the death of attraction. That's why today, we're going deep into the art of psychological subtlety, into the invisible method that makes her look in the mirror and wonder, am I doing enough, without you ever saying it out loud? This isn't about playing games or being manipulative. This is about restoring balance, the balance that naturally exists when a woman deeply respects the man she's with, when she's emotionally tuned into his energy, when she knows she can't coast through the connection without giving it life. Let's start with a fundamental truth. People value what they have to earn. When something or someone is easily accessible, always available, and perpetually affirming, it can inadvertently diminish perceived value. In relationships, this means that constant validation without boundaries can lead to complacency. To maintain a dynamic where both partners are engaged and appreciative, it's essential to balance affirmation with self-respect. One effective approach is to subtly shift the dynamic by introducing a degree of unpredictability. This doesn't mean playing games or being disingenuous. Rather, it's about not always being immediately available or overly accommodating. For instance, if you typically respond to messages instantly, occasionally taking a bit longer can create a sense of anticipation. This slight unpredictability can prompt her to reflect on her own engagement and investment in the relationship. Another strategy involves focusing on your own personal growth and interests. By dedicating time to your hobbies, career, or personal development, you naturally become less centered on the relationship alone. This self-focus not only enhances your own well-being, but also signals that your world doesn't revolve solely around her. Such independence can be intriguing and may lead her to reassess her own role and contributions to the partnership. It's also beneficial to engage in open, honest conversations about mutual expectations and boundaries. Expressing your needs and listening to hers fosters a sense of respect and equality. For example, discussing how both of you can maintain individuality while being together can highlight areas where she might have taken certain aspects for granted. This dialogue encourages self-reflection without assigning blame or causing defensiveness. Lastly, consider the power of positive reinforcement. When she makes efforts or shows appreciation, acknowledge it sincerely. This not only reinforces desirable behaviors, but also subtly contrasts with moments when such efforts are absent. Over time, this can lead her to contemplate her actions and their impact on the relationship's health and balance. Here's where things get interesting, because most men think they have to raise their voice, argue, or pull away aggressively to shift the dynamic, but that's not how high-value men operate. The real power move is subtle. You change how she sees herself in your story, not by attacking her, but by elevating your own standard quietly. When she says something that crosses a line, you don't debate it. You don't justify yourself. You pause, you breathe, and you simply say, I don't entertain that kind of energy. It's a calm rejection of the behavior, not her. That silence after you say it, that stillness, makes her sit with it. She'll start wondering, did I just lose his respect? And that internal doubt is powerful because it doesn't come from your anger, it comes from your composure. That's the kind of self-control that rewires her view of you. It forces her to look inwards without you ever needing to raise your voice. A lot of guys underestimate how much their emotional reactions are being observed. She's constantly reading your responses, your tone, your posture, your vibe, looking for signs of weakness or desperation. So when she tries to bait you with passive aggression or cold behavior, and you don't flinch, it sends a silent message, I'm not here to prove anything to you. That kind of confidence is intoxicating because it shows that your world doesn't get shaken by hers. Instead of reacting, you remain focused on your life, your mission, your peace. This creates space, and in that space, she starts questioning her approach. She replays her actions. She wonders if she's misreading you. And that uncertainty builds attraction because the moment she can't predict you, she's emotionally engaged again. You've stopped being just another man trying to please her, and you've become someone she has to re-earn. Here's a subtle move that flips the dynamic. Break the pattern. If you're always the one initiating plans, checking in, or making time, stop. Don't make a dramatic speech about it. Just stop doing it. Not to punish her, but to show her that your energy is selective. When she notices the shift, she'll feel it, and that's the point. She'll start to question her position, not because you told her to, but because your actions are showing her that access to you is a privilege, not a given. Women feel the loss of attention much stronger than they feel the gift of it. So by withdrawing quietly, you make her reevaluate. She'll start to wonder, was I giving enough? Did I take him for granted? That mental spiral you've triggered, without saying a single rude word, is where your power lives. Never underestimate the power of mystery in a relationship. Once a woman feels she's figured you out, she puts you in a psychological box. You become predictable, safe, and eventually boring. But when you reveal only parts of yourself, when you keep your deeper thoughts, your long-term plans, your emotional responses measured and selective, you become someone she has to keep learning. That continuous curiosity is what keeps her invested. You want her to say, I know him, but I still feel like there's more to him. That tension keeps the connection alive, and it also puts her in a space where she knows she hasn't conquered you fully. That's where doubt is born. Not doubt in you, but in her own dominance, and that's exactly where you want her to be. Interested, intrigued, and just slightly uncertain about how much of your heart she really holds. One of the most powerful silent signals you can send is emotional consistency. If your mood is always dictated by hers, she knows she controls the dynamic. But if your energy stays grounded, regardless of her drama, her moods, or her tests, you show her something rare, a man who lives by his own internal code. That's a huge shift, because now she's not dealing with a reactive man, she's dealing with a centered one, and a centered man is hard to manipulate. So when she throws a test your way, maybe she gets distant, maybe she flirts to trigger you, maybe she starts withholding affection, and you don't chase, don't collapse, don't question yourself. That's the moment her own position becomes unstable. She starts doubting whether she still holds the same power over you, and that doubt makes her try harder. She begins to reinvest. And the best part? You never had to be rude, you just had to be strong. When she begins to take your presence for granted, most men make the mistake of proving their worth. They overextend. They try to remind her how valuable they are by showing affection, providing gifts, or constantly validating her. But that's not the move. You don't raise your value by giving more. You raise your value by pulling back strategically, and not in a manipulative way, but in a way that says, I see what's happening, and I'm not participating in a dynamic that doesn't serve me. That quiet withdrawal is potent. She will notice when your energy starts retracting. She will feel that shift in the air. You don't announce it, you don't explain it, you just move differently. And when she sees you stop fighting for her attention, stop chasing her moods, she starts doubting her dominance. The power isn't in how loud you are, it's in how calm your boundaries are when you enforce them without fanfare. Let her have the last word. Let her think she's won the argument. Let her believe she's made the point that sticks. Then, do absolutely nothing. Don't correct her. Don't chase closure. Just leave it as it is. Because what happens next is something she didn't expect. She starts wondering why you're so unbothered. That's the seed of doubt you need. When she expects resistance but finds silence, her certainty breaks. Is he withdrawing? Did he stop caring? Did I go too far? These questions will echo louder in her mind than any comeback you could have delivered. This isn't about playing games, it's about understanding how powerful non-reactivity is. Every time you hold back from proving a point, you build your mystique. You force her to sit with her actions. That's when she begins to reflect, and in that space her position starts to feel less stable, less secure. And it was your silence that did it. Start living in such a way that her access to your world is not automatic. The more she feels entitled to your attention, the more she devalues it. So the key is subtle scarcity, not punishment, but prioritization. You show her that while she's important, she's not the center of your life. You show her that your mission, your time, your peace come first. That means sometimes you don't answer immediately. Sometimes you choose solitude over conversation. Sometimes you end the call first. These are tiny shifts, but they send massive psychological signals. They say, you're not the only thing on my mind. and that makes her question her hold over you. You haven't said anything unkind, you haven't disrespected her, but your actions quietly say, earn your place here. That kind of emotional posture is what makes her chase, because once a woman feels she no longer has complete control, she becomes invested in regaining it. One of the most underrated power moves is to maintain kindness when she expects defensiveness, when she tries to provoke you through sarcasm, silence, or even subtle disrespect, and you don't get triggered, you don't get cold, you don't return fire, you simply smile and remain calm. She will feel a strange discomfort, not because you're weak, but because your energy doesn't match the chaos she brought. And that mismatch will force her to look at herself. She'll realize you're not on her emotional leash, that you're operating from a place of deep control. She might even feel guilt, not because you shamed her, but because your peace made her chaos stand out. And in that contrast, you reframe the power dynamic. Without saying it directly, you're teaching her, this is how we communicate in my world. And suddenly, she's not sure she's in the dominant seat anymore. That uncertainty is where respect begins to rebuild. Here's a secret few talk about: most women respect a man who respects his own energy. That means you don't explain your value, you live it. You don't argue about what she should appreciate, you demonstrate it through how little you tolerate disrespect. You don't convince her, you simply walk differently. And when she starts noticing that you're no longer reacting the way you used to, when she sees you're no longer waiting on her validation, when she realizes you're focused, grounded, and indifferent to emotional games, that's when her certainty crumbles. She starts wondering if she's misread you. She questions if she still has the same hold on you. And that internal shift is powerful, because you didn't break her down, you elevated your standard. And in doing so, you shifted her behavior without force, without conflict, and without ever raising your voice. That's how you make her doubt her position and desire yours, all without being rude. There's an old rule in power dynamics: never let her feel like she's already figured you out. The moment a woman feels like she knows exactly how you'll respond, how you'll react, how you'll chase, you've handed over the script. You've given her the blueprint to control the emotional tone of the connection. But the man who keeps her guessing, who never fully reveals his hand, who switches patterns just slightly, not to manipulate, but to remain unpredictable, that man becomes a psychological puzzle, and people don't walk away from puzzles they haven't solved. So if she pulls away and expects you to chase, and you don't, she pauses. If she criticizes you and expects you to defend yourself, and you don't, she rethinks. If she plays hard to get and expects you to double your effort, but instead you back off completely, that makes her stop in her tracks. Not because you were rude, but because you've now shifted from something predictable to something that requires her to figure you out. And that's when doubt creeps in. Not fear, not insecurity, just curiosity. And once she's curious again, you've quietly taken back the frame. There's a deep kind of strength in emotional silence, not the passive-aggressive kind, not the avoidant type, but the composed, self-contained stillness of a man who isn't controlled by every spike in her mood. If she's hot one day and cold the next, and you stay centered, she notices. If she withdraws her affection, and you don't panic, she starts analyzing. If she tries to make you jealous, and you remain unshaken, she starts to feel foolish, because your silence holds a mirror to her behavior. This doesn't mean you suppress emotion, it means you refine it. You become the eye of the storm. Her turbulence bounces off you, not because you don't care, but because you're built differently. And women notice when a man is built differently. She might not say it, but deep inside, she's reevaluating. And as she reevaluates, her certainty about the role she plays in your emotional world starts to dissolve. You didn't insult her, you didn't criticize her, you simply held the line. And in that quiet strength, you forced her to question the power she thought she had. When she starts to get comfortable, when she starts assuming that no matter what she does, you'll still be there, that's when you quietly shift. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but with silent recalibration. You stop replying instantly, you start taking longer to respond, not to punish her, but to live your life. You cut conversations short when they bring you no peace. You exit environments that no longer feel respectful, and you do it all with calm, because the man who can adjust without explanation is the man who commands attention. She'll notice the shift, and because you haven't told her why, her mind starts working overtime. Did I do something wrong? Is he losing interest? Is he seeing someone else? And while you're not playing games, the mystery creates internal movement within her. She starts doubting the grip she had on you, and that doubt makes her reassess her approach. Now she's showing up differently. Now she's chasing clarity, and that's the moment she realizes your energy was never hers to control. It was yours to allow, and now you're pulling it back. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say less when she expects more. When she complains, and you simply say, "I understand," without engaging the argument. When she seeks reassurance, and you offer warmth but not desperation. When she tests you with silence, and you respond with presence, not panic. These subtle, quiet moves flip the script entirely. Because she's been conditioned by other men to expect a certain kind of emotional chaos, and you refuse to participate in it. She expects emotional bargaining, you give emotional sovereignty. She expects validation, you give calm detachment. She expects reassurance, you give quiet confidence. And now she's off balance, not in a harmful way, but in a wake-up way. Now she's not so sure she has the upper hand. Now she's reevaluating her tone, her energy, her attitude. And you didn't lecture her into this realization, you embodied it. That's the difference between speaking your power and being it. One creates argument, the other creates introspection. And that introspection is what makes her doubt the very position she used to feel so sure about. Never underestimate the power of walking away while still being kind. When you can say, "I respect you, but this no longer aligns with me," and you don't raise your voice, you don't seek approval, and you don't leave a door open for manipulation, that's a move most women never see coming, and it shatters whatever illusion of control she had. Because up until now, she thought your kindness meant submission. She mistook your attention for neediness, but your exit proves otherwise. It proves you were choosing her, not chasing her. And now, in your absence, her mind becomes loud with uncertainty. Was I wrong? Did I push too far? What changed? That's the moment where transformation begins, not just in her behavior, but in how she sees you. You're not a man trying to prove your worth. You're a man who already knows it and who isn't afraid to preserve it. That's a position she didn't expect you to take. And now, she's the one trying to figure you out. That's the exact moment the power balance quietly flips in your favor. The moment she realizes you're not emotionally predictable, something shifts in her. You're not withdrawing out of spite, you're simply not available for games. That distinction matters. She may try to bait you with passive-aggressive behavior, subtle digs, or manufactured silence. Most men fall for the trap. They react, they plead, they try to fix the energy. But you respond with stillness. That stillness sends a message louder than any argument. I don't chase disrespect. You're not explaining yourself. You're not justifying your standards. You're not asking her to act better. You're showing that if she doesn't, you'll simply vanish from the equation. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you clear, and clarity is rare. Clarity is threatening to those who are used to manipulating confusion. So instead of arguing your worth, you demonstrate it through your absence, and that ironically makes her question her own behavior. That doubt she feels, that pull to understand why you didn't react like every other man. That's when she begins to consider if maybe, just maybe, she pushed away something irreplaceable. Understand this, emotional detachment is not indifference, it's mastery. It's the ability to separate your self-worth from her approval. And when a woman feels that, it creates a unique tension. She's attracted to your presence, but she can't quite get control of it. She enjoys your company, but she doesn't feel entitled to it. She loves your attention, but she doesn't know when or if it will return. That uncertainty isn't manipulation when it's born from authentic self-control. She's drawn to the mystery of it because you've shown her that your emotional state isn't reactive to hers. You've taught her that you can be fully connected and yet fully independent. That is rare, and in that rarity lies power. Not loud power, not forceful power, invisible power. She doubts her position, not because you humiliated her, but because she realizes you're not the one being pulled by the strings. You're the one holding the frame, the one who chooses, not begs. That psychological difference rewrites the entire emotional script. One of the most silent, effective ways to make her question her position is to subtly improve yourself without ever announcing it. While she's testing you, you're leveling up. While she's being inconsistent, you're hitting the gym. expanding your mind, sharpening your social skills. And you don't post about it, you don't flaunt it, you just live it. And eventually she notices, she starts seeing you as different, more composed, more driven, less available for nonsense. And suddenly, the image of you that she had in her head, the man who would always be there, always chase, always reassure, starts to dissolve because you're not the same anymore. You didn't argue, you didn't explain, you just became better. That's the kind of growth that makes her reflect. Because now, when you walk into a room, she can't read you the same way. Now when she looks into your eyes, she senses something untouchable. And that unknowable edge makes her question if she still holds the place in your life that she once took for granted. Sometimes, the most seductive thing you can do is not to tell her how wrong she is, but to show her how little her assumptions define your behavior. Let her think you're clingy, then detach. Let her think she has you wrapped around her finger, then politely set a boundary. Let her expect a reaction, then give her stillness. This quiet contradiction between who she thought you were and who you actually are is what creates long-term psychological attraction. Because now she's confused in the best way. Not because you're playing with her mind, but because you're challenging her expectations. That kind of mystery is powerful. It doesn't make you unpredictable in a chaotic way. It makes you unpredictable in a captivating way. She can't place you in a box. She can't map out your emotions. And that throws off her power play. Not in a harsh way, but in a way that makes her re-strategize. She starts wondering if she underestimated you. And once that seed of doubt is planted, she becomes more careful, more respectful, more invested. Women aren't obsessed with men. They fully understand. They're obsessed with men who surprise them with integrity, who remain grounded when others would crumble, who stay respectful but detached, who care deeply but won't beg. That paradox. The fusion of warmth and mystery is what keeps a woman hooked long after she thought she figured you out. So instead of proving yourself with words, prove yourself with patterns. Instead of explaining your standards, embody them. Instead of trying to control how she sees you, control how you show up. And over time, she'll come to a single inescapable conclusion. This man doesn't need me to feel whole, but I feel incomplete without him. And that realization doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from emotional discipline. You're not rude. You're not distant. You're just self-contained. You don't punish her for her behavior. You invite her to meet you at your level. And if she can't, you continue your life without resentment. That's the final twist. The move she never expected. The invisible shift that makes her rethink everything. When you reach this level of emotional presence without attachment, she starts to realize that her emotional highs and lows can no longer sway you. She used to be able to pull you in with a dramatic text, a sudden silence, or even subtle attitude shifts that would have once sent you spiraling into self-doubt. But now, you meet her chaos with calm. Not indifference, but calm. You observe, you pause, you reflect, you respond, not react. This is the turning point where her strategy starts to work against her, because what was once a tool of control becomes a mirror. She starts seeing her behavior more clearly, because you're no longer fogging the mirror with your reactions, you're holding it steady. She can now see herself, and sometimes that reflection is uncomfortable, but it's in that discomfort that growth begins for both of you. And in that growth, she doesn't see a man who tried to win her. She sees a man who led her, quietly, out of her own self-sabotage. That's power. True leadership in a relationship doesn't come from dominance, it comes from composure. You make her doubt her position, not by belittling her, but by holding her to a higher standard than she holds herself to. You're not chasing her, because chasing signals you're below her. You're not correcting her, because that implies you're trying to parent her. You're simply demonstrating who you are. And when she sees that your world doesn't revolve around her approval, when she realizes you will walk away from anything that costs your peace, it changes the game. The moment she senses that you've given up the need to impress her and instead focused on impressing yourself, that's when she starts to wonder, wait, what does he know that I don't? That's the start of the obsession. And you didn't yell, you didn't plead. You just walked a little quieter, a little straighter, and a little further away from the drama. And that silence, that graceful withdrawal, that becomes the loudest message you'll ever send. It's not about playing mind games, it's about mastering your own mind. Because when you stop arguing, stop chasing, Stop trying to manage her perceptions. You return to the center of your power. You make her doubt her position because you no longer occupy the role she assigned you in her head. You're no longer the over-invested guy, the emotional sponge, or the validation machine. You're something else, something stable, something grounded. And that shift is confusing because most men she's known have been predictable. They beg, they argue, they try to win her back. But you're busy becoming more of yourself. That's the lesson. The ultimate reframe is to stop proving and start evolving. While she's trying to figure out why you're not reacting, you're figuring out how to be the strongest, calmest, sharpest version of you. That quiet glow, that non-verbal transformation is what makes her question everything. Because now she's wondering, what if he's the prize and I'm the one who lost? So let this be your final move, not a tactic but a lifestyle. Stay kind but remain untouchable. Stay warm but never desperate. Let her feel your absence in the places where she used to feel your overcommitment. Let her question what happened to the version of you that was once so eager to please, because that version didn't disappear out of spite, it evolved out of necessity. You make her doubt her position by becoming a man who doesn't need validation to know his worth. A man who can love deeply, yet detach peacefully. A man who can speak volumes with silence. In the end, she won't remember the arguments. She won't remember the words. She'll remember how your stillness made her look at herself. And in that stillness, you'll no longer be the man trying to win her back. You'll be the man she never truly figured out. That mystery, that restraint, that peace, that is the invisible signature of a man she can't stop thinking about long after you've left the room.